Hey, what's up guys? Kolst here, bringing this new Hearthstone Battlegrounds content. So if you haven't heard yet, there was a patch. There were several heroes adjusted and also several new heroes added and removed from the game. So I want to talk about the new heroes that are being added and changed, and give them a rating out of 5 stars. And if you want to see more of this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Alright, let's cut right to the chase and start with I think the biggest story, which is the new hero Arch-Villain Rafaam. So let's just look at Arch-Villain Rafaam's hero power. 1 gold, add a plain copy of the first minion you kill to your hand. So the reason I want to start with this one is because this hero power is absolutely busted. So the reason I say that is because there's just no downside to it. You spend 1 gold, you're always going to kill a minion, and at worst, a minion can always be sold for 1 gold. But it's better than adding a random minion, because this is a minion that someone decided was good enough to actually pick themselves. And in the late game, this has just crazy implications, because you're going to take people's life things, or not so much anymore, but like, you know, brands or whatever else you could possibly want. Amalgams is a big one too. So basically, it's going to give you a huge advantage just off of tempo, but also off of attack. And that's where it's a huge advantage. People often not notice your Rafaam, lead with their brand, give you a brand, and you have a brand now, even if you haven't even leveled to level 5 yourself, right? So it's absolutely crazy. And the big thing is that there's also absolutely no downside. The only downside of the hero power really is that it's just not, it doesn't have quite as much early game power maybe as you know, the brand hero or something that's absolutely busted like that in the early game, but you know, still you get a lot of tempo out of it. So there's just no downside. It's just good in every way. And honestly, I've been playing a fair number of games, and I don't think I've seen a Rafaam ever fall outside of top 4 yet. And I'll just say, like, I don't expect the hero power to stay in this state for very long. I expect it to get nerfed to 2 mana. It's going to get the Toki treatment, I think, very soon. But, you know, we'll see about that. But, yeah. Let's move on to the next hero. Oh, I forgot to even say this, but 5 out of 5. Obviously. Alright, let's move on to the next hero, which is Edwin van Cleef. So his hero power reads 1 mana, 1 gold, give a minion +1/+1 for each minion you've bought this turn. So how many minions you can buy in a turn is rather capped by the cost of it. So you usually only gonna buy 2 to 3 minions per turn, maybe. So 1 mana, give a minion +2/+2 +3/+3. You know, that's pretty good. So I haven't played this hero, so I don't know exactly, but I mean, you can figure like you probably want to cast this whenever you can afford to. It gives a pretty significant buff to a minion, right? And I haven't played him, but I played against him, and the Edwin seemed to do pretty well. It seems like a pretty good hero power. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Because it's useful in the early game. Although it's a little hard to spend gold on anything in the early game, but it has some benefit in the early game, and it's also going to continue to scale into the late game. You can buff valuable minions, Divine Shield, Taunts, Cobalt Guardians, etc. You know, those kinds of things. So I think it's a good hero power. It's not Rafaam crazy, but it's pretty good. Next, let's talk about the third hero which was added, which is Sylvanas Windrunner. Her hero power reads, cost 0 gold, remove a friendly minion to give adjacent minions +1/+1. Although it says cost 0, you're effectively spending 1 gold because you could have sold that minion for 1 gold, right? So it's really a cost 1, and you're theoretically getting the same kind of buff as Edwin, but it's just much more difficult to use, because especially like in the early game, for instance, I've played this hero and like you can't afford to sell stuff in the early game because you need to be able to have that gold available, or you just need to have the minion available to actually fight for you, right? So it's much more difficult to use than Edwin. It also has less upside. You could maybe buy 3 to 4 minions per turn, where you're always just going to get +1/+1 on 2 minions with this thing, right? And you have the same kind of benefit when you put on a Cobalt Guardian or something. That's how I've gotten decent value out of it. But I think this is just a much more awkward, clunky, and more difficult to use hero power compared to Edwin. So I think I would reflect that Sylvanas just isn't as good as a hero like that. I'd rather just have a more early game powerful hero power, or one that's easier to use. So I'm going to give Sylvanas a 2.5 out of 5. She's not complete garbage, but just not as good as, you know, other heroes that get stuff for free, basically. Alright, so let's talk next about the heroes that were in the game that were removed and are now returning to the game. First of these is Maleficent Manastorm, which I know as Mech Lady. Originally the hero power was your mechs in the tavern get +1/+1. Now it's just your mechs in the tavern get +1 attack, which is a significant nerf. Generally, I think in this game, health is more valuable than attack. But my motto generally is that anything you can get for free is pretty good. So if your Cobalt Guardian has +1, it's better than nothing, right? So even though I don't think this buff is very significant, it's there and it's something, and it'll cause you to win early game fights potentially that you might have lost. So I'm gonna give Maleficent a 3 out of 5. Not terrible, but I think better than something like Sylvanas, and definitely better than garbage, but nowhere near, something that's overpowered. The other hero that's returning is Lich Buzz. Lich. I don't know how to pronounce that, honestly. So previously her hero power was gain a coin, basically, which is 1 gold for 3 health. Now it's gain a coin for 2 health. Basically, she had a very bad win rate because it was very easy to mess up with her, essentially, and just end up like randomly dying and going 8th. But now it's much more forgiving because it's so much less health that you're taking to actually get those coins. Even though she was riskier before, I thought she was still really strong before, so now I absolutely think she's busted. I'm going to give her a 5 out of 5. And also, it's worth noting that one of the cards that was just added to the game, I haven't mentioned this, but there were 2, but one of them was Floating Watcher, which benefits from taking self-damage, and it's just another proc for that. And I happened to get a golden Floating Watcher pretty fast with Lich, and I had a 40/40 on turn 9, or on the 9 mana turn, not even turn 9. So that was absolutely insane, and yeah. But anyway, there's definitely a lot of potential because you basically just get like something like 7 to 10 free mana out of her, so you get to just get like a full level and a free buy and stuff. She's absolutely crazy. All right, and next we'll be moving on to the heroes that were in the game before, and they've just been making some balance changes too, which were all nerfs, I think. So the first one to mention is Patchwork. So Patchwork was before you get to start the game with 60 health instead of 40. Now you only get to start the game with 50 health instead of 40. And I think this is a pretty significant nerf already because of how aggressive the game was. Even though you started with all that extra health, like you would lose a lot of the extra health to all the other early game heroes. So Patchwork felt like a pretty weak hero, and now Patchwork I feel like I haven't seen it too much because I think people aren't picking anymore because it's just 10 health is just not enough. 10 health is like one fight going not your way, right? Where if you had like an early game hero, like Brand for instance, then you just don't take that 10 damage, right? So there's really no benefit to having Patchwork because it's just not enough. You're not going to be able to play greedier because you have that extra 10 health because you're just going to lose it immediately. So I just don't think this hero is good. I'm going to give him a 2 out of 5. And spoiler is the worst rating I'm giving it to any of the heroes I'm mentioning today. Because I just don't think he's good anymore. Don't pick him. And beyond that, a lot of the heroes that would have been gotten a worse rating than that aren't even in the game anymore. So he's one of the worst heroes in the game now. Alright, next hero I'm going to mention is AFK. So AFK works fundamentally the same now, but they just changed it. So instead of getting a 4 cost and a 3 cost minion on turn 3, you just get 2 3 cost minions. So the nice thing about that is the question of do you take the 4 cost or the 3 cost first is solved. But now we have the new question of do you take the right one or the left one first? And I think that's really important. Make sure to leave a comment on which one is correct. It's very important. Definitely. It's definitely a nerf, but I still think AFK is a good hero, better than like Patchwork or something. I don't think this is like an overwhelming. This definitely doesn't destroy AFK. She still feels strong on turn 3. It's not it limits a bit of how much you can high roll, but I think if anything, 3 drops are actually a bit more consistent, so you're gonna still do fine with AFK. I don't think she's dumpstered by this change at all. So I'm gonna give her a 3.5 out of 5. She's still good. Not crazy, maybe not quite as good as before, but still good. Alright, so since we've been talking a lot about the early game heroes, one of the other heroes that was changed is Rat King, which is one of the strongest early game heroes. So Rat King's hero power, he has 4 hero powers technically. It rotates randomly between these 4. It always starts with beasts, but it rotates randomly. Which, for the 4 tribes in the game, it used to be give all minions that you buy +1/+2. Now it's just +1/+1. So you don't have quite the consistency necessarily, but you're gonna get that benefit sometimes. So Rat King was like a super top tier unit before, and this is definitely a nerf, clearly, but Rat King is still pretty good, I think. So I'm gonna give him a 3.5 out of 5. It would be like a 4 or 4.5 if it was more controllable and less random, but you know, it's gonna provide you some benefit in the game. So Rat King is still good, but not quite as oppressive as he was before. And the last hero that was changed is Secret Guy. And people say he has a name. No, he doesn't have a name. Secret Guy. Okay. He wasn't changed by too much. They just made a couple minor changes. So Hand of Salvation, which is one of the more awkward secrets, because it doesn't always trigger, because a lot of times you have death rattles, and when your second minion dies, you often will have full board, so the secret just won't trigger. It was really awkward. They just removed it, I think not for balance reasons, just because it was really weird. So it's fine. That's not a big deal. But the second change is that they made it more difficult to get ice block consecutively. So it's less likely that you'll be able to cheat out, you know, extra turns where you're losing, but you just lose slower. Kind of like a better Patchwork, essentially. But yeah, they make it so it's less likely you're going to be able to do that for a long period of time. But that's fine. But I think the power of Secret Guy is he's kind of like a Nefarian, where it's just, you know, you can do things like you get like a really big Divine Shield Poison Taunt or something, and you get a copy of it, or you give it Divine Shield or something. So it's like, it's a huge advantage in those late game fights. So I'd say probably not quite as powerful as Nefarian, but it's still good. So I don't think this is a huge change to him. I liked him a lot before, so I'm going to give him a 4 out of 5. That might be a bit generous, but he's still, it's going to depend on where your evaluation of him was before. I think he's about where he was, maybe slightly better, I don't know. Because you are more likely to get those powerful secrets that allow you to win fights now, because one of the secrets was removed. But, you know, overall not too big of a change. Oh, I should also mention the one other major change, which is that Lightfang Enforcer was nerfed, so instead of being +2/+2, now it only gives +2/+1. I think this doesn't completely kill Lightfang, but it's a pretty significant nerf. Makes it less of an absolutely hard carry. As I mentioned before, I think health is more important than attack, so I think, if anything, it just makes Bran that much more dominant as the best, or one of the best late game cards in the game. But in any case, we all know the late game is owned by our Murloc Overlords now. So, yeah. But alright, that's going to be it for me. Thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe again if you want to see more of this kind of content. If you want to see more arena content too, just make sure you can leave a comment too. There will be more arena content, but right now I think Battlegrounds is getting a lot more of the support from Blizzard, I'll just put it that way. So, you know, there's going to be more attention here for the time being. Hopefully with the next expansion, maybe they'll start to like maybe have a live leaderboard like they have for Battlegrounds in Arena or something. I don't know, some kind of support. Literally anything, Blizzard, if you're listening, please, anything. But, you know, yeah, we'll have to see about that though. So, yeah. Anyway, see you guys around, and peace out.